Welcome to the Further North podcast, your weekly dose of the North Melbourne Footy Club. My name is Josh, and this is a fan-run podcast doing match previews, reviews, and everything North. Let's get it started. Jeez Louise, guys, we've had a win in round one. Welcome back to the Further North podcast. It's a mega pod today. We're going to do a full review of that Eagles game. We're going to break it all down. We're going to do some positives and negatives out of the game. We've got some fan questions, which is very exciting. And then we're going to actually give out the first votes for the Shaun Atley Club Champ, which I know everyone is obviously sticking around for. At the end as well, we'll do a little Freo preview for round two. But don't worry about that just yet, guys. We've had a win. I can't believe it. I don't know if I've ever been as nervous watching a game. Definitely not in the last few years. Holding on at the end there was unbelievable. Well done. What do I even say to that? Did you guys expect to get the win? Really? Because I was telling everyone we're going to win. Did I really believe that inside? I don't know. I have no idea. But we got the win. We're in the top 8. Nick Larkey is sitting on top of the Coleman medal. Things are pretty sweet right now down in Arden Street. So Kane Corns, take that, mate. So to kick this review off, we're going to look at the team lineup that was actually announced. A few crazy things to dissect in there. Obviously no Todd Goldstein, which was a massive one. A lot of people were telling me, Goldstein's dropped. I don't think that was the case. From as far as I know, Nick Nat's not playing. There's some no-name ruckman playing for West Coast. This is a chance to give Jerry a game who's going to take over our ruck stocks in the next year or two. I think that'll happen a lot this year. When we do play a weaker ruckman, Jerry will get a chance over Goldstein. Goldstein's the better ruckman currently. We know that. To me, that's the reason why. Let me know if you guys agree with that, but that's the reason why for me. A crazy one for me was Miller Bergman on the bench. Obviously, Jack Siebel getting named at halfback sent shivers down my spine, especially from round one last year with the Hawks and Mackay going down. Miller Bergman, I didn't even know if that guy played in any of the preseason games. I haven't seen him since his shoulder exploded in round one last year. But look, young guy getting a game. Clarko knows. Let's trust him. That was very strange for me, though, to see that. Kane Turner in the middle as well. I knew he'd be on the bench. You guys listened to the podcast last week would know with the Closer to a Flag lads that we said Kane Turner is 100% starting this game, even though it wouldn't be our first choice. But being named as one of the followers next to Davies Uniacke, that's wild. Kane Turner, he's probably playing every game this year. No Aiden Core. No, Aiden Core was another one. We all know I'm not the biggest fan of Aiden Core, but putting Jack Siebel at halfback and Miller Bergman being the guy who should probably be playing at halfback as an actual defender, I would have had Core over either of those guys. I would have had Siebel in the team, but I would have had Core in that team. Yeah, very, very scary. But look, it obviously worked out. We got the win, but that was a weird one for me. I was pretty confident that Core would come in. Another one we all talked about was Will Phillips. Not sure why he was named the sub. I guess maybe just game plan. Obviously, it would have been good to name Goldie as the sub because we know what happened to Jerry. But obviously, Will Phillips got a lot of game time anyway. It is what it is now, but very unusual after his great preseason that he wasn't in the starting 22. And Hugh Greenwood, I guess, was a 50-50 last week when we debated the topic. We know what Hugh Greenwood did in this game, but hindsight is a great thing. Hugh Greenwood getting named in front of Will Phillips or something like that. Interesting. But once again, we back Clarkson. Maybe the last one is just Zerha. Obviously, was in doubt because of his calf. Great to see him named. Other than that, the team was pretty standard. If you guys had any other ones, let me know if I've missed anything there. But they were the only ones that sort of stuck out for me. Let's do some positives and negatives now. We'll start with the negatives and then we'll go on to all the positives. There's not as many negatives as positives. Don't worry. We're keeping this upbeat. We're keeping this exciting. But midfielders getting out the back. I said this last week with the Bulldogs game. And when we win the ball in our midfield, we are very, very good at getting that ball forward. But as soon as someone gets out the back, there's a paddock to run into. I don't know why this always happens to us. It's happened for years. Even when we were decent under Brad Scott, it seemed to always be a thing where there's a lot of players backside of the contest, and once they get the ball, there's no one there to tackle. Our half-back line is sitting like 20 metres behind them all, and they're just gone, and all of our midfielders are like, oh, where did they go? So, look, that's got to be tightened up. It wasn't as bad as it was back in against the Bulldogs, but something we really need to make sure we get a hold of, because against a better team, that's gonna come back to bite us. My next point is poor choices kicking forward. I think anyone who watched the game knows there's a couple of times going up the wing and kicking to half forward that we kicked it straight to the opposition. We could have taken advantage of those moments too, because we did get out from the packs and the ball came straight back over our heads, and on the counter-attack, we get absolutely belted. So, yeah, that was a little bit terrifying, to be honest. But hopefully, as the season goes on, those little skill errors get tightened up. I'm sure, look, they'll watch the game back. Clarko will be like, oi, guys, don't do that. It is just an experience from our team, but that was a little bit terrifying to watch, because that's when they were on the comeback as well, and we turned it over a couple of times, and my stress levels can't do this every week. So we have to beat the Dockers by at least 10 goals next week. A couple of players to point out, a little bit contentious, I think. Look, I don't want to be too negative on players, but look, I want to give an honest review as well. Jaden Stevenson, I think the times he did touch the ball, he was good with it, but it just wasn't enough times to impact the game. You know what I mean? Like, he got a shot from 35 metres out and he missed it, and that was one of the only times I remember seeing him in the play. The times he did kick the ball to a player or use his skills, he's very good. But I think he had something like 10 or 12 disposals. You've either got to get more disposals if you're playing in that midfield area, or you've got to kick goals if you're going to play in the forward line. If you're going to get 12 disposals, 3 or 4 of them have to be goals. So, yeah, maybe not quite on it for me. Kane Turner, I think he got 7 touches. I know some people said that his pressure was very good and that he laid a lot of tackles, and I agree with that. He did lay a lot of tackles and his pressure was good. But I think there's another player to be able to, be brought into that team that's going to make more of an impact on both ends. Offensively and moving the ball forward, he's not good. He was one of the guys who kicked the ball to the opposition a couple of times. We can find someone who can lay tackles and can have clean disposal. But look, yeah, Turner was a bit absent for mine, even though he did impact with a couple of big tackles. Yeah, maybe not quite on the level I'd like him to be, like a lot of us. And Miller Bergman, I saw some people say he had good decision-making and good disposal of the ball. Yeah, I think he did in times when it didn't matter so much. He is young, and I hope he turns into an All-Australian, but there was times in that game when they were on the comeback and he was sloppy with the ball. He didn't know what to do. I remember a time him holding it on the wing and he just needed to kick it forward and hit a target. He hesitated, he ran around, he fumbled, and he just launched that ball, and I'm pretty sure it got turned over. He's just not quite at the level for me, and I think Core and Mackay both are better than him, and they need to come in. Mackay obviously has a few weeks, but Core I would be probably putting in over Bergman. But yeah, I thought those 3 were a bit absent. Everyone else played their role and did pretty well. Those 3 I would be questioning for next week, which I will go through when I sort of name my team for next week. Another point is the backline looks fragile. Once again, not as bad as the Bulldogs game, but they do look shaky at times. A big thing will be getting Mackay back in there, but I'm not confident. I'm not confident when the ball does go into the forward line or our back line. Hopefully, blow the dust off. Clarko can get in their ear and they can tighten it up, because I thought McDonald and Zeeble played well. But, yeah, I'm still scared. Is anyone else still scared? Is that just me? I'm still scared. Skill errors is another one, and I will narrow this down a little bit more. There was a lot of times when we had an outside runner running past a pack and should have received a very easy handball, and it was dropped. The handball was behind them. They're the times where we can get out and hit Larky on the chest, at least getting it into our forward line and hopefully locking it in. That's the difference between a win and a loss. Those little handballs with Davies Uniacke running past in a paddock, and we just miss them and we turn the ball over and it goes back down the other end. That could be the difference between 3 or 4 goals for us. Hopefully, once again, it's just blow the dust off. It's the first game. We're a young team. But if we can tighten that stuff up, we would have buried the Eagles. And my last point for a negative is we did let them back in. I'll counteract this one in the positives, but we did let them back in. We had 35 points on them and we let them back in. I was so stressed. I was not confident, guys. And look, can you blame me, really, for the last few years? I was not confident. But as we know, we held on, and hindsight's a very beautiful thing. But in the moment, I was terrified. But that's enough negatives. That is enough negatives. Positives. Here we go. Sheezel. How good was Harry Sheezel? Oh, my God. Give him the buddy deal. Give him the buddy deal. Give him the armband. Oh, my God. Sign this guy for life. He looked so calm and composed. I didn't expect him to play at halfback. And if you thought you expected that, you're lying to yourself. He was clean. He took marks. He dropped into the gaps. He was good at hitting targets coming out of defense. He gave us class in our most vulnerable area on the field. What a debut. I love him. I love him. Everyone, all aboard the SHEEZE train to Premiership City. Oh, how good was Harry Sheezel? What more can I really say except just basking in that guy's greatness? 34 touches. I think someone said third most disposals in a debut game in VFL, AFL history. That's unreal. We haven't had a player this exciting play a game or his first game like that for a long, long time. So it's only going to be up from here for him. Like he's kicking goals. This is my next point. And if you guys, if you did listen last week, you would know I have a bet with my mate Big Ant at work that Larky's kicking more goals than Oscar Allen this year. Well, that's a statement. 6 goals for Larky, currently leading the Coleman. But the biggest thing with Larky, I guess, is people are kicking to him on the lead. Yeah, once again from last week's podcast, I think Liam or Rashawn, I think it was Liam, said that, yeah, it's been so long since he's seen our team kicking to the chests of our players when they're leading in the forward line. That's enough just bombing it in for the last 3 years. Look what we can do when we hit players on the chest. That's so much better to see. This is my favourite point. No ruck, no problem. We think Melbourne is revolutionising the game with Gawn and Grundy with 2 ruckmen. Clarkson says, hold my beer. We'll do it with no ruckman. Charlie Comben and Hugh Greenwood, which I did not expect to ever play in the ruck, they held it down. Maybe not with giving our guys first use or actually getting the tap, but just competing and letting our midfielders do the work. Great job. Great job. I can't believe Hugh Greenwood didn't look small in a ruck contest as well. How tall is that guy? I should have looked it up before the podcast, but look, Hugh Greenwood, All-Australian ruckman. I could see it. I could absolutely see that. Leading on from that point, Charlie Comben. What a game. This is what I wanted to see from Charlie. Getting thrown off and putting it into the ruck. Obviously, we didn't get to see him up forward all game and maybe kick 2 or 3. He got a goal. He competed. He was athletic and kept his head when the game got tough in the ruck. Held his strength and won that free kick to ice the game. Sent that ball forward towards the boundary line just like he should have. That's exciting. I think he had 11 score involvements, I saw the stat was. Fantastic. If he can play that half-forward role and be leading up the ground and impact contests and pinch hitting the ruck while Larky's our full forward leading out from the square, I like that. That's very juicy. Aidan Bonner was okay. Now, that sounds a little bit down for a positive point. He grew into the game. I like Aidan Bonner. I don't know why I'm this sold on Aidan Bonner, but I think he could play that Josh Gibson type role. He can play on a small. He can maybe play on a tall, maybe. I don't know. I just thought he grew into the game and he was important late. The first half, he was a bit average, but I think he grew into it, and I hope that he can get some continuity from that and be good enough to hold a place in the side. Him and Aiden Core is a 50-50 for me. I'd maybe go Bonner for the versatility. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but look, I thought Bonner was good. I thought he was decent towards the end of the game especially, so good on him. The next point, our midfield. Powell, LDU, Cunners, Simpkin. Oh, Phillips. That's a midfield. That is a midfield with depth. You've got Wardlaw coming back in there eventually. That's our future midfield. How exciting is that? Powell and LDU especially played so well. LDU just carried on from his form last year. Powell carried on from his preseason form, which I never saw the year before. If you guys listened to the first episode, you know I was lost on him. But Powell, especially when he won the ball out of the middle and you could tell he was looking to just send that ball as far forward without looking, he stopped, stepped a player, took a bounce, composed himself, and put the ball into the forward line to a much better spot. That's fantastic. All our midfielders need to do that. Well done, Powell. LDU, fantastic. Cunners, look, not a classic Cunners game, but when he was there in the pack, he was strong. He's not getting bullied. And he was one of the guys that could make that handball to an LDU who's running past 2 centres forward. So fantastic from those guys. Phillips and Simpkin, a little bit quieter. Not bad by any means. They were very good, very solid. But look, they just have to play their role if those other 3 guys are doing what they do. And those guys will star in games and the other guys will have to drop back a little bit. Not every midfielder can have 35, obviously. But as a midfield unit, I love it. I bloody love it. And if we get Goldie in there next week in place of Sherry, I like that. Get those guys first use. And if we can hit guys in the lead moving forwards, that's dangerous for me. To counteract the last point of the negatives, we held the lead. We did hold the lead. We would have crumbled last year, and we all know we would have. Just getting through that, holding the lead, that's massive for morale in the group and belief and showing that we absolutely can do this under our new coach. So that was huge for me. Logue and Mackay as a back duo when Mackay comes back, that is a delicious, as Bruce would say, combination. Those 2 can be our back line for the next 5, 6, 7 years. I love it. I love it. Sign Mackay, please, Mackay. We love you so much. Please sign this deal. But once those 2 are there, I'm going to trust our defence so much more. And the last point is sort of leading on from one of the other ones. Just getting over the line is all we needed. We need to take that as a positive. Obviously, we could take it as a positive, but I don't care how we won at the end of the day. We're taking that. We got the win. We're up and about. And Freo better watch their backs next week. They absolutely better watch their backs next week. That being said, changes I would make for next week. I would be bringing Core in for Bergman. I'd be bringing Goldstein for Jerry. As we know, that absolutely has to happen. I'd be dropping Turner. I know. We love Kane Turner here, but I'd be putting Aaron Hall in. Aaron Hall is AFL quality. Him off the back line. With players leading now, we've got Comben to back up Larkey, who can push forward. Aaron Hall has to play. And I'd be putting Steve-O sub. I'd be dropping him, to be honest. He didn't impact the game at all for me. And Steve-O sub and bring Will Phillips into the starting 22. So they're the 4 changes I would make. Let me know if you guys agree with that when I post about the podcast. Send me DMs, all that good stuff. I love hearing from you guys. But they're the changes I would make. So let me know if you agree and let me know of other changes that you guys would make as well. I want this to be a community. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me how dumb I am. That's cool. Now the part you guys have all been waiting for. We're going to do our first 3, 2, and 1 votes for the Shaun Atley Club Champ. Just a reminder, the Shaun Atley Club Champ is named after Shaun Atley, one of the best medium grade 200 gamers we've ever had. I loved Shaun Atley running down the wing. It was so exciting, but we all need that sort of 6 out of 10 play every single week, and that's what I love around here. So the 3 votes for our MVP for the year. Harry Sheezel, 3 votes. We knew that was coming. I think Larkey could have got 3, but on debut, Sheezel, absolutely. Sheezel 3, Larkey 2, and LDU 1 vote for that game. We're going to be keeping track of these votes throughout the year, and we'll keep you updated with the leader. Hopefully I can get a little trophy made, and let's get Shaun Atley to present this trophy to whoever wins it at the end of the year. I'm going to slide into Shaun Atley's DMs. I'm going to tell him how much I love him, and I'm going to see if he'd present the trophy. Do I think I'll get a reply? No. But then I'll message North Melbourne and be like, can I have Shaun Atley's number? Surely they'll do that. But they're the 3 votes for the week for the Shaun Atley Club Champ. It's already hot at the top. The SHEEZE train, all aboard. So now let's jump into our Q&A for the week. I posted on the Instagram and the Facebook page for you guys to post your questions. We've got a few responses. I probably didn't post it early enough because it's only been a few hours until I'm recording this. But I'm going to read out a few of your comments and questions. So we've got Jess Stevenson from Facebook says, Charlie Comben had a very good game, being his third AFL game as a key position player, which is very, very true. Standing in for Big X and helping out in the ruck as well as his second and third efforts on the ball. Someone to definitely look forward to. Jess, I absolutely agree with that. And that was one of my points in the positives. I was so happy with Charlie Comben. His third AFL game, we know he's locking down his spot now and he's going to get continuity. I couldn't imagine him in a ruck role, but he was solid. So could he play around the ground? We know if he plays that centre-half forward role and has to push forward to the wing to create a contest, if he does have to go in the ruck around the ground, he can do it. We've got a versatile player on our hands. So Jess is spot on with those comments. Thank you, Jess, for that as well. Another comment, we've got Glyn Lavender. Glyn? I think it's Glyn. Hi, Glyn. Glyn says, show Turner some love. 9 tackles, lots of pressure acts. His positioning slowed the Eagles' run out of defence on numerous occasions. Did he make mistakes? Yeah. Didn't they all? He's got more of a comment, but I'll just touch on that one first. I agree 100%. He did have, his tackles were crucial and he did impact the contests around the ground well. And look, he did slow the Eagles' run down. I'm not saying we should drop Turner because he was bad in this game. I would just like another player to come in who can do what Turner does, but also make any sort of impact while going forwards. But I do agree with Glenn on this. He was solid. He was solid. Also, an observation. I'd rather come from 12 points behind early like we did, build a good lead, than lose it, than maintain or grow that lead. There will be a significant more teaching opportunity. There will be more significant teaching opportunities than an easy win. And I fully agree with that and touched on that before too. How we won isn't important in the grand scheme of things, but when they watch the game back and look at being able to hold that lead, that is massive for belief in a young team. So you're just absolutely spot on there, and thank you so much for your comment as well. Now we'll go over to the Instagram comments. Geez, I got to read out this handle. Giddies Tockman on Instagram says, why did you pick North Melbourne? I did answer this in my first pod, but I'll say this again. I picked North Melbourne. I'm from Tasmania originally, so there's no geographical relevancy to why I picked North, actually. And my parents are from Sydney, so they were rugby league. I was at primary school one day, maybe about 2004, 2005, and I found a John Blakey select footy card at school. And I thought the colours were cool. I thought a kangaroo was a cool logo. So I took it home and I watched a game shortly after that. I think the first game I watched was against Geelong, and we absolutely slaughtered them down at Caninia Park. And since then, I loved it. A couple of years later, we made a prelim. Shannon Grant, Corey Jones, all those guys. Glenn Archer, I love Glenn Archer. Absolutely fantastic, and I was hooked ever since. So, thank you for that question, Giddies Tockman. Hopefully a regular commenter now, because I want to get better at reading that handle out. And our last question, Reese Delaney 87 on Instagram. Greenwood, did we underrate him and write him off too early? Yeah, I think we did. I know last week Tyler on the podcast was saying he would have Greenwood in the team. And look, in hindsight, the man's a guru. Did Tyler think that there was a ruck role for Greenwood? Next time, Tyler, you're on the pod, I'm going to want an honest answer from you from this. Was it because it was a ruckman? But no, Hugh Greenwood's good. We debated Hugh Greenwood a lot last week. He was 50-50, and I did say he was stiff to not make the 22. But I think we did. Being 30 or 31 as an AFL player these days is not the same as it was back in the 90s. And I think this is all sports in general. Just because a player turns 30 doesn't mean that they're past it. You can play to your mid-30s in this league now with all the sports science, and Greenwood is a clearance machine and clearly showed his versatility. So I reckon Greenwood has held his spot down for next week. And Reese is right. Yeah, I think we did write him off too early. There's going to be a lot of those players, and hopefully we all back Clarkson to make the right decisions. But Yeah, I agree. Reese is right. I reckon he was absolutely written off way too early. So there are all the questions, guys. Thank you so much for writing in. Please follow the Instagram at Further North Pod and the Facebook page Further North Podcast. I'm often going to do Q&As, and the more comments we get, the better. So I love the following and the interaction you guys have given me in the first 4 weeks of doing this podcast. Let's keep it up. Tell your mates and send your comments and thoughts in. DM me anytime, and I'll read this stuff out on the podcast because I love the little community we're building here. All aboard to Premiership City. Leading on from that, it would mean the world to me if you guys could leave a 5-star review on either Spotify or Apple. It helps the podcast get out to more people, to be higher in the rankings on sport podcasts, and we'll throw it in the face of more people to help build this community. You guys are such an important part of spreading this thing. Tell your mates, tell your North mates, send it to people. I love the interaction. So if you guys could take the time, it's free. 5-star review on Spotify or Apple, that would mean the world. I think Apple, you can leave a comment with your reviews as well. So if anyone gives me 5 stars and leaves a comment, I'll read them out. If anyone's already done that, thank you so much. I'll go back, I'll find the 5-star reviews, and I'll read them next week on the podcast. But yeah, if you guys could do that just as a little free thing to do for me, that would be fantastic. So thank you so much. I guess a little Freo preview for next week. We are traveling all the way over to the west. At time of recording, the Saints have actually beaten the Dockers by 15 points. Are the Dockers not gelling? Is Nat Fyfe not the greatest forward we've ever seen in the league like predicted? Maybe. Do I think we'll win that game? No. As Sportsbet put us as favourites? Absolutely not. Do I believe a little bit more that we could go over there and cause an upset now that the Dockers have lost and we got to win? Absolutely. We can go there and compete. We got 35 points up against a team. If we could hold that and have that run, anything could happen. Goldie obviously will come back into the side, you would think, unless we just go Hugh Greenwood in the ruck. But yeah, we could absolutely do it. Goldie feeding those midfielders. I've already spoken, I guess, a little bit about the ins and outs I would have. Just to recap on that, I'd bring Core in for Bergman, a little bit more solidity. Is that a word? Yeah, a little bit more solid in the back. Hall coming in and Phillips coming into the starting 22 with Steve-O being the sub. Yeah, that would be the best team I think we could put out, injuries aside. So luckily, unlike the Cats actually on the weekend, we came out with no injuries. And Jeremy Howe. That was terrifying, wasn't it? Hope he's okay. But yeah. Let's go over with a positive attitude, guys. Everyone tune in. We already beat Wet Toast, so who knows? Who knows what the Close to a Flag guys will come up for Fremantle. Did you guys see the little signs that the Close to a Flag guys got to hold up at the game about Wet Toast? And Horn Francis in the crowd saying no to ice bars, the little signs they had? Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant stuff. Remember to follow their Facebook page as well. Between me and those guys, Bay 29, that's the bay to get to for North Melbourne home games. We're creating our own little cheer squad. All the banter and fun is going to go on in there. There's always cheaper or free tickets to give away, so I'll always advertise that when we've got those, and those guys will as well. They do a great job. So follow all those pages, and maybe you can get along to a North game and have an ice bath with someone dressing up just like Jason Horne-Francis. So that about does it for the podcast this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's ride this wave for as long as we can. Let's beat 2 Western Australian sides in 2 weeks. Larky's top of the goal kicking. We're in the top 8. Savour this, guys. Don't let anyone bring you down. Don't let that idiot Kane Corns or Caroline Wilson bring you down. We know what we're doing here. Trust the process. We'll get there one day. But I'm excited. What a great win. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, please, 5-star reviews. Leave comments for next week's Q&A. Follow me, Facebook, Instagram, and let's do this thing together, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next week. And remember, Kanga... Do I do it? No, I don't want to do it. I don't. Thanks for listening to the Further North podcast. We'll be back next week with more great North chat. See you then, Bruce fans.